Hello, everyone. For my group, I had encounter groups, which was pages 256 to 261. My name is also Farley Friend. Okay, to start off, I have encounter groups. There are 6 different kinds of encounter groups. The first one was human relations, group, group human potential groups, T groups, training encounter groups, and growth groups. These were all developed in the National Training Laboratory based off of writings of Carl Rogers. These were also very popular in the 1960s and 70s because of the heavy emphasis on trust and the learning community. Now, these groups are virtually extinct today. They're not very common because of the negative side effect. The negative side, which was there was a unequal balance of power between the leader of the group and the participants, which was not very positive. And another characteristic of encounter groups was that it was very loosely structured. There was no set agenda. It was mainly based off what the participants were feeling that day and what they wanted to talk about. So just an example of a personal growth group in action would be there would be a group, and the group is very upset because nothing is basically being discussed, and somebody chimes in and says, I'm frustrated, I'm so tired of this, what are we supposed to be doing? And then the leader would basically say, what do you guys want to talk about today? What are you guys feeling? And they would basically, in turn, be like, we are feeling frustrated because we don't know what we're supposed to be doing. And the leader would basically validate their feelings, be like, I understand that you're feeling frustrated, but this is a good place to start. How about let's talk about how you are feeling frustrated and why you are here in the first place. And then that's basically how, like, just an example of the loose structure that would typically take place in a personal growth group setting, just to show that it's very like loosely structured and there is no set goal or agenda for these groups. So a psychoeducational group, on the other side, is pretty different than the previous one, whereas psychoeducational groups are very structured and very goal oriented. So, in a psychoeducational group, it would mainly talk about career options and future plans. So, it was more of an instructional sort of group versus them talking about how they're feeling. Once again, these kinds of groups had a structured agenda. It was very goal oriented, definite goals. It was also ran by a leader. Um, the leader basically guides them and is like a mentor, sort of. And they were previously called guidance groups in the past. And a typical setting for these would be schools, rehab centers, and some substance abuse specialists would use psychoeducational groups to plan the future for the participants. And then the overall goal for psychoeducational groups was to prevent future obstacles and just basically make it easier for the participants to succeed. So an example of a psychoeducational group in action is a leader is basically talking to the group of participants, explaining how experience in different careers and different fields will help them in the future and help them succeed in life, and it will help them clarify their likes and dislikes for the future. and the leader picks out a specific girl, let's say her name is Tina, and he explains that Tina does not like working in a medical environment because she does not like sick people, and or she does not like being sick. And he basically would maybe ask the group, based off of this prior information, what career do you think would fit Tina the best? And that is just showing basically that psychoeducational groups are very structured, they have a set agenda, and they are very future oriented, and they want to help their participants succeed once again. So moving on, counseling groups. Counseling groups are very similar to somebody going to get individual counseling, whereas um, they are focused on solving interpersonal conflict in that person's life. They are very focused on eliminating self-defeating behaviors. And a key trait to counseling groups happens to be that it takes it's very brief treatment. Maybe not very brief, but it's brief compared to other groups, I'd say. And they're more focused on not digging into your past and evaluating your past, but more of like what is going on with you right now and how does that make you feel and how are we going to solve this. And just another example of a counseling group would be maybe a school counselor would organize a group for children with disabilities to express their frustrations. And once again, this is like that kind of goes back to like the brief treatment. It's just expressing how they feel right now versus like expressing how their past has affected them. So finally, we have therapy groups. Now, therapy groups, there's not very much difference between therapy and counseling. However, specifically psychotherapy takes place in places like hospitals, medical environments, or clinical settings. So that usually doesn't happen with counseling groups. Also, another key characteristic of therapy groups is that it is a long-term treatment, which means it's focused on, it's not brief, it's focused on the long term. And this basically happens with patients with diagnosable disorders like maybe like bipolar depression, that focuses on like intense analysis and structural personality changes. So this would be people who maybe like have to take medicine, or like people who are diagnosed with serious disorders that need therapy throughout maybe their whole entire life if they need it, or just to fix their okay, that is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.